Another day, another gun grab from those politicians who can't just leave us alone. This time, Biden is actively bribing pro-gun states into adopting red flag laws.
If the state does not have that law in place, it could be media campaigns or public service announcements that would encourage the state to incorporate that type of law.
Yes, you heard that right. Your tax dollars that the government stole from you are being used against you. But you already knew that, didn't you? Hi, I'm Ben, and you're watching the Minuteman Moment. I'm sure you remember last summer when squishy Republicans teamed up with anti-gun Democrats to pass the Bipartisan Safer Communities Act. I like to call it the Cornyn-Murphy sellout instead, because that's more accurate. The bill had a lot of bad gun control in it. Watch our video here if you want to learn more. But what we're focusing on today are the DOJ grants. These federal grants to the states are supposed to help state and local law enforcement departments operate effectively, but instead, those traitors to the Second Amendment weaponize these funds against us. Oh, but don't worry. Senator Cornyn from Texas promised that there'd be due process protections. After weeks of icing GOA out from secret backdoor negotiations, he dropped his bill text and made this speech saying,
"But one of the things that we've agreed upon is they have to have robust due process protections, because we're talking about a constitutional right. So if the new law does not include due process protections, it will not be eligible for these grants, no matter what form that crisis intervention program takes."
And to this day, Senator Cornyn's website still reads, if a state chooses to use any of this funding to implement an extreme risk protection order program, it should be required to meet strict and expansive due process, evidentiary, and standard of proof requirements. This bill would force states with red flag laws to adopt strict and comprehensive due process protections before they qualify for the grant funding. Yeah, if you're one of those people who thought that's enough protection, this won't be abused, then I've got some 9mm that will blow your lungs out.
A .22 caliber bullet will lodge in a lung. A 9mm bullet blows the lung out of the body.
Republicans who supported this legislation accused gun owners of America of lying about the effects of the Cornyn-Murphy Compromise. We were right that the 18 to 20-year-old gun ban was unconstitutional, and that's why we filed a lawsuit to have it struck down. We were also right when the change to the definition of a gun dealer would encourage Joe Biden to declare backdoor universal background checks. And now, we've been proven correct that this law would be abused and the due process protections are worthless. President Biden took John Cornyn's due process protections and used them to wipe his. Every state with a red flag law got funding for their current red flag laws without making any changes for due process protection, except for Florida, who didn't apply in time. All of these states got free money to keep confiscation orders on the books and no added due process for you. Now it gets worse. Not only did a bunch of idiots in the Senate compromise your rights away and get literally nothing in return, and not only did Biden fund every single state with a red flag law that applied, but if you live in Arkansas, Arizona, Kansas, or West Virginia, your state received funds from the grant program to pass red flag laws, even if they didn't have any already on the books. West Virginia received $1.7 million, Alaska received $1.4 million, Kansas $2.7 million, Arkansas $3.2 million, and Minnesota got $3.7 million. In fact, Minnesota passed a red flag law within 100 days of receiving their $3.7 million grant. Totally not a bribe or anything, guys. Okay, I've shown you the states with the red flag laws and a few that have been bribed into passing gun confiscation orders. But what about the rest? Well, every other state also received funding. But in this case, they didn't specify if they were going to use this money for red flag laws or not. That's pretty suspicious if you ask me. But we're also concerned about these states being bribed by the federal government into passing these laws. Listen to a federal bureaucrat describe how they want this funding to be used.
So these programs could either, if they have existing laws in place, they could be proposing trainings or other things to help ensure that the law is being implemented. If the state does not have that law in place, it could be media campaigns or public service announcements that would encourage the state to incorporate that type of law. So it's really assisting those grantees that are looking at either improving implementation of their existing law or educating to potentially create that law within their state.
Now you might be thinking, this is outrageous. This is illegal, no? Yep, you're 100% right. This is completely illegal. The federal government is not allowed to lobby states to further their agenda. But who cares? These are the tyrants we're talking about. This is exactly why GOA refused to compromise with your rights. If you give the anti-gunners an inch, they'll take a mile. We fought against this, and we were the only no-compromise gun lobby in Washington, D.C. fighting on the ground for you before this passed. But not enough Senate Republicans listened. They compromised, really sold out your gun rights for some worthless due process protections. So be careful. Soon, your state might actually have red flag laws. In fact, only 3 states said that they won't pass any of these laws. And in the grant said that they won't use any of this for red flag funding: Montana, Wisconsin, and Idaho. So hats off to those patriots. If you want to see how much money your state got and what they're using it for, check out the link in the description below. Sellout Republicans knew this was going to happen. But come on guys, they really need another medal on their chest to prove they can get things done. These squishy politicians would rather think about themselves and claim that they did something. All of this at the expense of violating the Constitution, your due process protections, and then selling themselves out. Now, your next question might be, is anyone doing anything to stop this? Well, here's where Senator Roger Marshall from Kansas and Congressman Alex Mooney from West Virginia are leading the charge. Their letter to the Department of Justice asks a bunch of important questions. Like, how can states who didn't change their laws to include due process get funding? Or, why is the federal government trying to illegally influence state legislation? Or even, why is it that everyone who applied got funding? These questions are all things we need to know, but also help us expose how far this administration is willing to go to restrict your natural right to self-defense. This letter, along with Representative Lauren Boebert's Shall Not Be Infringed Act, which we did a video on, are just a few of the battles that GOA is fighting for your rights every single day on Capitol Hill. So pick up the phone and call your senators and representative and demand to know what they're doing to hold the Biden administration accountable for this misuse of federal funds. Thanks for watching. Be sure to subscribe to stay up to date with all of GOA's fights for your rights.